I see on my fancy EVE watch that it's time for EVE Online! Can I try something? What is it time for? EVE Online! And again, what is it time for? EVE Online! Really? What? Okay. So, it's my deep honor to introduce the EVE team that really needs a new introduction. They're all star developers by now. They're going to come here on stage and take us through a journey of 90 minutes of presenting what's upcoming for EVE Online. Really look forward to hear what you all think of it. They're going to be led by Andy Norgren, who's back with us after a brief maternity leave. She now has a beautiful baby boy that might grow up to be an EVE developer at some point. But she is going to come here with her team and take us through a journey of what's coming up to EVE Online. So please give an extra special welcome to Andy Norgren.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I hope you're all having a really awesome Fanfest. Both those of you who are here and those of you who are watching on the stream. Hello, stream. We have a lot of stuff to cover today, so let's just get to it. EVE Online is a universe that we are just so proud to share and create with you. And it's been going for 11 years now. And it's our ambition to keep making this the finest living, sprawling arena for conflict and camaraderie that can be found in gaming. And of course, the place that lets you fly and build and destroy the finest spaceships on Earth. We're committed to making this world a universe full of player-driven action. That's really the key to EVE Online. And you should be able to experience this alone or together, in small groups or big, but always in one way or another connected to this overall shared story of our one universe. And our vision is to let players colonize and control more and more of this universe. And over the last year, we have shipped a number of features that go in this direction. And you, as a community, you have come together both inside the game and outside it. And I want us to look at just a few highlights from the last year in EVE. So, in June, we shipped the Odyssey expansion. It had a whole bunch of stuff, big updates to the exploration systems in the game, but also some significant changes to how we distribute resources in the game. And those changes were part of sparking off the Fountain War, where we saw multiple fights with thousands of players on each side, including the fight in 6v that still holds the record for most players in the same system fighting. And this made news around the world as the largest space war in history, even disappointing some people who thought that these news were not about a game world. In the summer, we had a fantastic alliance tournament. 64 alliances showed up to prove they know a thing or two about flying and fighting in EVE. And Pandemic Legion took first place on these awesome Force Recon ships. You also came together at a number of player events in some new and old location. Here's a big cheers from London. And in November last year, a typhoon struck in the Philippines, creating a terrible disaster. And actually, a number of you in the EVE community reached out to us to ask if there was anything that we could do to help. And we were just blown away by how the EVE community came together and gathered almost $200,000 for the Icelandic Red Cross to go and help in the Philippines. To me, it's just so amazing how, as a gaming community, you can come together and make a difference in the real world. In November, we also shipped the Rubicon expansion. And it marked the beginning of our work towards the vision we have for EVE Online that I was talking about last Fanfest. And I wrote this letter about it. If you haven't read it, you can find it on the EVE Online website in the Rubicon part. Rubicon had a lot of different features. It had Sisters of Eve ships, the ISIS ship identification system, ghost sites, high-sex customs offices, new character selection, all kinds of things. And it also represented a moment in the lore of the EVE universe where capsuleers, for the first time, get their hands on some of the technology that's involved with space travel, in the form of implants that alter warp speed. Small start. So the new mobile structures, that was one of our key beginnings in this vision of letting players colonize and control more of space. And we really wanted to expand the ability to build and own something in space to more players. And we were also really trying to create opportunities to be inventive in new ways with these structures. And people have really taken to them. We see a lot of use of these. And we also handed over the customs offices, planetary customs offices, in high security space to players. Out of the about 8,000 out there in high sec, 5,000 were captured in the first week. And since then, there's not a single one left that isn't run by a player corporation. And then, in a point release to Rubicon, these amazingly beautiful Sisters of Eve ships got some reinforcements in the form of the battleship, the Nestor. And we also added even more mobile structures, like the mobile jump unit and the D-scan blocker. And in the beginning of the year, we saw a number of big fights leading up to the huge battle in BTAC-R, the costliest battle in the history of gaming, and the battle with the most Titans lost in the history of EVE. And we thought that this battle was so epic that we really wanted to commemorate it. So we went and created a Titan wreck monument that you can go and visit now. But this being an historical event of sorts, we also thought it deserved a little documentary. So we went and made one, and I want to show it to you now.
The Battle of BTAC-R 5RB raged for over 20 hours, involved tens of thousands of players, and witnessed the destruction of over 3,000 ships, including 75 Titans, 1/3 of all Titans ever lost in the 10-year history of EVE Online. It was truly the most remarkable confrontation ever to take place inside a computer game. As happens so often in history, the catalyst for an event this large was something quite small. In this case, an unpaid sovereignty bill. The N3 coalition had used a single station in BTAC-R as the forward staging post in its long-standing war against the CFC-Russ coalition. When the sovereignty dropped, CFC-Russ saw the opportunity to deal a blow to N3. Both sides quickly mobilized their forces, causing skirmishes to erupt all over the region as ships moved in to capture or defend the system. 2 hours after the sovereignty drop, CFC-Russ had assembled their forces and jumped into BTAC-R with a massive fleet, including their super capitals. N3 immediately assembled its already outnumbered forces into its signature wrecking ball formation. Thousands watched as the two sides faced off, exchanging volley after volley from their doomsday weapons. Countless flashes from beams and bombs were punctuated by the occasional blinding light from an exploding Titan. Truly, there was no turning back. 4 hours into the engagement, the two sides stood roughly even, but N3 realized it couldn't match its opponent's ability to replenish their forces. Deciding that it would have to disrupt coordination between Russ and CFC to secure victory, N3 focused its firepower on the Russ fleet commander. In the process, N3 would suffer the loss of 5 more of its own Titans before finally destroying its opponent's Avatar flagship. N3 would never again match its opponent's strength, but its forces stayed on the battlefield for another 8 hours. Ultimately, though, N3 sounded the retreat. When the fighting ceased, 20 hours after it began, over $300,000 worth of ships had been obliterated, with N3 losing 59 Titans to 16 from CFC Russ. N3 was forced to retreat from BTAC-R and neighboring regions, but the war has raged on, even as both sides seek to rebuild. However the current conflict ends, pilots who venture into BTAC-R will see the shattered remains of the once magnificent ships that were lost in this titanic clash, now condemned to drift in cold, unforgiving space forever.
History Channel next, right? That brings us to the here and now. And it's been a great first year of Eve's second decade. And actually, it's Eve's birthday very soon, Tuesday next week. And to celebrate, as we usually do, we'd like to give away a little something. This here is the Gecko. It's a special Guristas heavy drone. And on Tuesday next week, for all of our subscribed customers, we're giving you 3 each. And then we have a few things up with this, where we are going to challenge the whole Eve cluster to reach a few different goals, and then you can unlock more of these for everyone. So just keep an eye out for news about that from our community team. Now, as you may have noticed, especially since Rubicon, we have started adding more substantial updates to EVE Online in between our main expansions. The results of our ship balancing project keep rolling out, we're making fixes to the UI, and we've even added new ships and new mobile structures in between the main expansions. And we've also built up larger efforts, such as the ship identification system, where actually, in a release earlier in the fall, we revamped the whole certificate structure that we then built the identification system on top of. And when something like the BTAC-R battle happened, we could be ready with this monument that we decided to create to commemorate it and deploy that not in the summer expansion, but quite close to after the battle had happened. And this is how we want to continue to work on EVE Online. If the first decade of EVE was about 2 expansions coming every year, EVE's second decade is going to be about frequent releases and lots of them. Starting with our upcoming big summer release, we're going to move away from 2 expansions to 10 releases per year. And I want to tell you what that means and why we're doing it. So now, instead of bundling all of our work into 2 big expansions per year, we're going to start shipping releases regularly, about every 6 weeks to begin with. And we're naming these releases after the Greek titans, starting with Kronos. And we've already planned out these release dates ahead. And some of these dates will change, of course, but the idea here is a 6-week release cadence. And because the release name is not a reflection of the contents in the release, we have just gone ahead and named a bunch of these up ahead. So with this new model, we're going to start talking about something we're working on, and when we're done, when we feel it's ready to go live, we will pick a suitable release date for it and ship it to you. And this has 2 important consequences for us. The first one is that for small and medium stuff, we can just finish it and ship it to you. Oops, sorry. We could just finish it and ship it to you. And that means we can respond faster, to keep the game healthy, to do fixes to the UI. Developers such as CCP Karker or CCP Punkteris, who do a lot of player-requested fixes, they don't have to wait until the next big expansion to deploy their stuff. They can just ship it. And it gives us great flexibility with small to medium things. But there's another, perhaps more unintuitive consequence to this change. It also means that we can be more ambitious with the features that we take on. And why is that? Well, it's 2 things, really. The first one is that when you plan 6 months ahead what's going to be part of an expansion, it's easy to get conservative, because if you miss that release window, the waiting time until when you can ship next is very long. So it's very, very costly to miss that release window. Maybe it's a feature that a whole expansion was relying upon, and then for some reason you missed the release window and the expansion falls apart. And what you would have to do is to wait, and maybe ship, almost a year later than you started working on something. And this makes people conservative, and for a while it has had us be kind of shy with what we're taking on. And in this new model, because we ship so often, we can be more ambitious. It doesn't cost so much to miss a release window. And because we can also break things down into smaller parts, we have just so many more options for how we can bring things to you. And it gives us this confidence where not everything is hanging on one thing, for example. So we've shipped a few things this way where, we ship part 1, part 2, and then part 3. And because the span between these releases is no longer like 6 months, which would be way too long to break up a feature normally, we can now much more reliably do this. And you will see us do some of this with the number of the industry features that are part of the upcoming release. And all of these releases will, of course, continue to be free. Some of them will be bigger, some of them will be smaller. The upcoming Kronos release is really big because it was originally planned as a full expansion. But the whole development team is super excited about this because it lets us work on Eve in a much more unrestricted manner. And a lot of habits and traditions are going to have to change as we make this pretty significant change to how we give you Eve. And we think that this is going to be much better for the game, much better for you. You'll get more stuff faster when it's sized for that. And we can have the confidence to be more ambitious and take on really big projects. But, like I said, a lot of habits and traditions are going to have to change. And I really want your feedback as we start doing things a new way and start reinventing how we deliver Eve to you in its 2nd decade. But now, to talk about his vision for Eve and the new features in the upcoming Kronos release, it is my great pleasure to introduce the new lead game designer on EVE Online, CCP Scarpia. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Andy, for the introduction. And hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's amazing to be here. It's surreal, really. So, as Andy was saying, I first just want to share with you some of my feelings about what I really want for EVE. Thing is, I believe that for us to propel EVE into the future and realize its full potential, we need to rely on the same core principles that EVE was originally founded on. I think EVE's success, despite EVE's success, we haven't pushed those principles as far as we haven't pushed them far enough since then. We can take EVE so much further. And I really want to live up to the promise of EVE. It's our job to provide you with a universe that is meaningful to learn about. A world that reacts consistently to your actions and that you can build up an intuitive understanding for. I want the world to be inhabited by NPCs that behave in a rational manner and provide you with the opportunities to control your own narrative. And I want you to be able to build and operate any structure in the game in a location of your choosing, without having to negotiate some artificial barriers. And conversely, I want every structure in space and every asset in the game to be destructible. I want the world to teach you that nothing is permanent. That change is constant, and the results of those changes persist in the universe. And it's also our job to provide you with the intuitive tools and infrastructure that you need to harness the limitless potential the universe has to offer, as well as the participatory tools you need for others to join your cause. And I think it's irrelevant whether you fly solo or you fly with others. The best experiences in EVE are when you know that your actions have had impact and they've gotten noticed. And I want to maximize the impact your actions have on the universe to give them a chance to spark a butterfly effect. Which brings us to the fact that the focus of this release is the very heart of the EVE sandbox. It's a process that capsulers use to transform the raw materials into machines of war and propels the vicious cycle in EVE. Industry is receiving a massive update, and I personally can't think of any better way for us to actually enter the second decade of Eve. Because this industry release is a crucial part of our future vision, where we will increasingly be putting more power into your hands. And so it's my great pleasure to bring on CCP Nullerbor. He's going to tell us all about it. Cameron.
Thanks, Peter. So Eve often makes headlines in gaming industry news, notably for its epic battles involving thousands of players over days or sometimes weeks at a time. However, we often forget about the relentless machine that day in and day out fuels this grand space opera. The tireless industrial masterminds that tinker away with optimizing material and time efficiency, maximizing margins and organizing logistics to acquire all the required building blocks. Industry is the beating heart of New Eden. With over 120,000 jobs submitted every single day for 11 years now, without missing a beat. It's really a thing of beauty, but it still has plenty of room for improvement and has been chosen as the focus for summer. We had 3 guiding principles while designing this release, and those were to validate that every feature has meaningful gameplay, to ensure that features are balanced around the risk-reward philosophy that underpins a lot of Eve's core design, and maybe most importantly was to make sure that they are very easy to understand and visible to the players, discoverable and accessible, but still maintaining the deep and interesting problems to solve in what's already one of the most fascinating economic simulations ever created. So let's get started with a walkthrough of what to expect later this year. Reprocessing is one of the oldest professions in Eve. It allows you to take ore and manufacture goods and loot and break them down into their component minerals used in manufacturing. It turns ice into fuel required to operate star bases, jump drives, and force fields, and it's a secondary income for looters. We're going to start with some adjustments to reprocessing yield, and that is the amount of minerals you get back from reprocessing an item. You will no longer get 100% perfect refine, and the bonuses that are achieved through skilling will now only apply to ores and ices. To ensure this doesn't affect the bottom line for miners, we're going to increase the output, specifically for ores and ices, by 38%. And all batches needed for reprocessing are also being rounded out to nice multiples of 100, for those of us with a little OCD. The end result is significantly reduced mineral output for modules and other non-ores, meaning you'll no longer be able to use manufactured items such as railguns for transporting your minerals, but still maintaining the value of mineral collection itself. Player outposts and starbase reprocessing arrays are getting a boost with a removal of the waiting times and an increase to their yield. And finally, we've completely revamped the user interface. You can batch reprocess items by just dragging and dropping. Both the inputs and the outputs are nicely grouped and sorted with tooltips that accurately explain how the mineral yield is calculated. So ore compression is a facility available to Rorqual pilots, whereby they can use onboard manufacturing lines and special ore compression blueprints to convert Veldspar into compressed Veldspar, or Arcanor into compressed Arcanor. The compressed ore is smaller in volume, and so it's easy to transport around in large quantities. We've made some improvements to this process, so you'll no longer need to have a big stockpile of compression blueprints and all the manufacturing lines. You can just simply right-click the ore and compress. All the existing blueprints will be removed and refunded, and the manufacturing lines from the Rorquals will also be retired. The compression option will still be available from the Rorquals ore bay, and a new starbase compression array, anchorable at any pos from HiSec to NullSec, will also have this feature. So to ensure the ore movement within industry does not grind to a halt, we're going to be boosting the quantity of ore contained within the compressed variants by 38%, and this is to mirror the reprocessing changes. This effectively means that instead of manufacturing items to transport your minerals around, you guys can use the compressed ore variants instead. Manufacturing is the bread and butter of industry in EVE. It takes all the meticulously collected minerals and construction components and assembles them into spaceships or structures or weapon systems used to wage wars and build empires. There are over 50,000 manufacturing jobs submitted every single day on Tranquility. But with that said, it's still an activity we'd like to see more players participating in. So as part of easing the transition into industry, we're going to smooth off some of the rough edges. Starting with the market groups, which are getting reorganized into 3 nice high-level groups of materials, components, and research equipment. We're removing the concept of damage for RAM and RDB components, and instead just multiplying the current stockpiles by 100 and making them consumable like every other material. This means you can always keep them stacked, and it makes their usage consistent, and it's just easier for new players and veterans alike. Following the changes to reprocessing, we can now convert all those extra materials listed on blueprints into just normal materials for consistency. And this will be affected by material efficiency research, just like normal materials as well. Starbases are part of the critical infrastructure used in industry. They're player created and they're deployed at moons, and they can have a variety of industry-related structures anchored within the force field. They're currently heavily used for invention and capital ship manufacturing, and they're also being rebalanced along some of these industry changes. The first and most significant change is that we're removing the restriction on standings for putting up a POS in high security space, and this includes all the way up to 1.0 systems, with a couple of exceptions. This not only adds a total of around 23,000 new potential locations for starbases, but it also moves them closer to some of the key trade hubs and heavy industry systems. We expect some of these locations in particular to be very hotly contested, similar to the recent expansion of customs offices in HiSec. A controversial but healthy alteration is that we are removing the ability to use remote blueprints in starbases. Instead, they must be moved into the structure alongside the materials for the job. To help rebalance this, to balance out the increased risk for using a POS, we're adding a 2% material reduction in all assembly arrays and a 5% time efficiency bonus to all labs. And there'll also be a reduced ISK cost for installing jobs in player-owned facilities. Now, this change is primarily driven by that risk-reward design philosophy. We fully expect a lot of industrialists will just continue their operations from the safety of an NPC station. But for the daring or the intimidating, the option to improve your margins at the risk of losing your blueprints, be it either copies or originals, is now available to you. Research is a group of activities which allow you to improve the stats of a blueprint. A research blueprint can take less time to manufacture items, but require less materials. For any serious industrialist, it's an upfront time and ISK investment to improve your margins longer term. Now, the first change we're doing is just some simple consolidation of the naming of the blueprint properties. So we already have material efficiency, or ME, which is staying the same, but it's being made more consistent in its usage throughout the client. The production efficiency value is being renamed to time efficiency, or TE, and that's just to better indicate what it actually affects. ME and TE values are being changed to absolute percentages instead of some arbitrary values, and researching material efficiency on a new blueprint will now step just 10 simple intervals from 0 to 10%, and similarly time efficiency will step 10 intervals from 0 to a 20% reduction in the time required to manufacture something. And training each of these levels gets progressively longer and more expensive. So that's to have consistency with how skills are trained. Copy times are being significantly reduced so that creating disposable, short-run blueprint copies for use in starbases can be done without drastically affecting the overall build time, and just opening up more options for creating, trading, and manufacturing with copies instead of the valuable blueprint originals. More options, less consistency, more consistency, and less confusion. So one of the big changes, one of the big barriers for new players and veterans installing industry jobs is the limited number of manufacturing and science slots in stations. And finding empty slots or short queue times in busy regions can be really challenging and acts as a deterrent for the feature as a whole. So this summer, the limited slots are going away, meaning every industry facility will be able to handle an unlimited number of concurrent jobs. Instead, we're putting a cost scaling system which adjusts the pricing of jobs based on the industry activity in that solar system. So on average, we can expect from 0 to 14% of the market value of the output product, and with busy systems costing more than quiet ones. This acts as a push, so industrialists looking for an edge will move their operations to quiet corners of the universe, but usually at the cost of additional logistics work to get their minerals in and take the final product out. The exact final cost will be calculated based on the type of facility, starbase bonuses, we've got a multiple run discount, outpost and faction war upgrades, there's some flat NPC taxes, and team costs, which brings us to teams. And teams are an entirely new concept that are being introduced, and they're a part of creating a more dynamic industry landscape. So submitting a job will now require an NPC workforce, and by default, a generic workforce will be assigned, and it's included in the costs I mentioned previously. However, specialist teams can be optionally hired, which further reduce the materials required and the time to manufacture a job at an increase in the job cost. So teams can be specialized for certain activities or types of items, so you want to be picking the best team for the type of thing that you're making. Teams live within a system for a few weeks until they're retired, and players can collectively bid in an auction to decide where newly formed teams should live. And if the cost scaling system sort of acts as a push, then the teams are designed to act as a pool for specific activities or groups of items. And this retiring and continual bidding should mean that the best places to be building certain things will be both manipulated by you guys and shift slowly over time. So industrialists will need to reassess their pipeline if they want to maximize their profits, instead of just putting the entire operation on autopilot. And finally, some juicy stuff. We're still very busy working on these industry changes, but we took a moment to record some in-progress footage. So keep in mind that we've still got a lot of polish to do and there's some missing features, but it should give you a good idea of where we're going with this. So let's open up the dramatically redesigned industry window from the Neocom. And we'll just pause it here. So the window is broken into two parts. The top section visualizing an industry activity, and the bottom half is used to browse through your blueprints and available facilities, running jobs and teams. All your blueprints located somewhere inside an industry facility, anywhere in New Eden, will be displayed, and you can filter them by personal or corp, as well as what facility they're in and even what container they're in. You can also use the quick search there to just filter types by filter by types or locations. So now, once we pick a blueprint, the job overview explains what materials are required, grouped by the type of input. And we can easily just click through the different blueprints and which activity we wish to perform, be it either manufacturing, research, or invention. We're spending a lot of time on the micro-optimizations to the interface usage. So things like remembering the previous settings from a number of runs based on the type of blueprint, or remembering your previous input locations, which can now be inside containers. There are keyboard and mouse shortcuts for all of this too. And if we adjust the runs on the job, we can dynamically validate whether you have all of the required materials. And this is the same is true for all the other requirements, such as like having enough funds in your wallet or having access to the corporation hangar divisions, etc. So no more trial and error by like clicking the fetch quote button. Finally, we can submit the job, which appears on the blinking Jobs tab. And here you can view all of your in-progress jobs, as well as up to a 3-month history of previously completed jobs. And resubmitting an old job is just as simple as picking it and clicking the Start Production button again. So yeah, we're really excited to be bringing these changes to you, and they'll be hitting Singularity in the coming weeks. We also have a panel session in this room tomorrow at 2 p.m. So if you have any questions about all of this, I know we've released a lot of dev blogs, but you can come and talk to us in person. Or if you just want to provide some feedback, please come along to that. And with that, I'm going to hand you back to CCP Scarpia. Thanks for listening, and have a great time at Fanfest.
Thanks. Thanks, Cameron. That was good. Good to have somebody who knows his stuff talk about this stuff. Yeah. As you can probably imagine, you'd be very hard-pressed to find a system from any game, really, with the same level of player infrastructure as industry has in EVE. And we all knew this, and we all knew we had to take a lot of care and really do our homework. And to give you an example of that, here are some of the many breakdowns we had to make to just get an overview of the system so we would actually understand it before we started poking at it. And also, just so you know how extensive the actual work turned out to be, we ripped out the old system and we rewrote 10,000 lines of code. And as a result, we needed to publish 6 full-scale dev blogs to introduce all those changes to industry alone. So I encourage you to go and look at those. To me personally, though, I feel like this industry release is a prime example of the level of investment we're putting into strengthening the core foundations of EVE. The stuff that's been there the whole time, and we really felt we needed to dig deep and go into them. But now that we've seen the industry stuff, it's time to figure out what to build, right? And you could probably tell from when I was talking earlier that I sometimes have a tendency to get caught up in all the high-level vision and like the meta and stuff like that. But the thing that always keeps me grounded is just knowing that just the simple pleasure of undocking in one of your favorite ships or in a ship that you've never flown before is always there. And I'm pretty sure that even the most heartless capsuleers in here all take pause every now and then just to zoom in and marvel at their own ship. So, without further ado, here to give us our healthy dose of shipography are CCP Rise and CCP Fuzzy.
Hello, Fanfest. Who wants to see some spaceships? So as we prepared for the Kronos release, we knew that we wanted to make some big improvements to the ships that were most important to industry to go along with those amazing industry changes that we just showed you. And the real there you go, there's on the slide. The real workhorses of industry in EVE are mining barges and exhumers. These ships mine most of the ore that goes into everything that's built in EVE. And a couple of years ago, we gave them a big rebalance that separated them into 3 roles, different specializations for different types of mining. And that was a great, great change, but we realized we had the opportunity to push it farther and to make those roles stronger. And give players more freedom of choice of exactly how they want to go about their mining. So we are going to be pushing the roles further apart, making them more significant. We're adding a new range bonus to the Coveter and the Hulk, and new stronger defenses to the Skiff and the Procurer, including, for the first time ever, a damage bonus on mining barges. So if someone comes at you, you can punch them right back. Now, another key workhorse of industry in Eve, the largest and most significant movers of freight throughout the universe, are the freighters and jump freighters. And in Kronos, we are going to be giving freighters and jump freighters a complete rebalance. These ships do a lot of things amazingly well, but they have always been lacking customization, the ability to decide how you want to fit your freighter to meet whatever needs you have. So I'm very happy to announce that as part of the rebalance of freighters and jump freighters in Kronos, we're going to be giving them for the first time the ability to fit rigs. This means you'll be able to increase your cargo hold beyond its current standards with cargo rigs. You'll be able to improve your speed with warp speed rigs. And another new addition in Kronos is going to be the hull HP rigs to allow you to more easily make it through tough choke points. In Kronos, we're also going to be doing a full pass on transport ships and blockade runners. These ships, the Tech 2 haulers, yeah, there we go. These haulers are a key part of industry in Eve, including the blockade runners, stealthy ships for getting dangerous cargo through dangerous areas. And we're going to be giving them more flexibility, including a second high-power slot for every faction of blockade runners. We're also going to be strengthening the deep space transports, the heaviest duty subcapital transports, giving them more cargo ability, more defenses, and a couple new tricks up their sleeve. More information about this will be revealed on the forums and dev blogs in the coming days. We are also... yeah. I've got a good reveal for you right now, though. We're also introducing a completely new industrial ship in Kronos. A lot of you guys really enjoyed the introduction of the Venture frigate in Retribution. And now, for the first time, I'm going to show you the Prospect officially. A lot of you clever players already have found out some of the things about this, but these guys are the first of a new class of expedition frigates, designed for the boldest of pilots to explore into the frontier and collect resources of the highest magnitude. And to help them with that, the Prospect is going to be the first mining ship with the covert ops cloaking devices. Yes, you can bridge them. As well, we're also giving them enhanced mining capabilities. They're getting better ore mining in the Venture, as well as matching the Venture's amazing gas mining capabilities. And getting an increased cargo hold so they can hold a mobile depot comfortably, and a double-sized ore bay compared to the Venture. We're also going to be making a series of changes and improvements to mining in dangerous space, especially low security space. We're going to be adding better ores to low sec and adding some extra minerals to some of the rarest ores. And these will go along very well, I think, with the Prospect to allow people who go out searching for the rarest and most valuable ores to come home with a real valuable haul at the end of the day. Now, all of the information about the Prospect and the changes we're making to dangerous mining are going to be in a dev blog that we already written and will be released after this keynote tonight. So go check that out later tonight after the festivities, or if you're at home, after the stream. We're also going to be making a large set of changes to drones in Kronos. Drones started out in Eve as a secondary weapon system, something that just goes alongside the main weapons. But as often happens, players knew better than we did. And players determined that these things were really fun to play with and wanted to use them more and more. So over time, we've been improving drones and raising their stature. And in Kronos, we're going to be giving them most of the rest of the way to being a fully fledged weapon system. And that means we're going to be leaving no combat drone behind, helping out all 4 factions of drones, improving them so that they're all useful in different situations, making sure that every single size of drones is useful, and every level of drones from Tech 1 to Tech 2, all the way up to integrated and augmented. We're also going to be adding new drone enhancement modules to ensure that players can customize their ships to make their drones even more powerful, including a new low-slot drone tracking enhancer. And we're streamlining all of the drone skills in the game. Like as a main weapon system, we're giving it the same skill progression that you see in other weapons in the game. And we're changing some of the skills that made it very hard for new players to use drones effectively to ensure that players right out of the gate can use drones competitively but still have ways to improve them significantly. And now I'm going to hand the clicker here over to Rise, who's going to show you some more awesome stuff.
Hey, guys. You guys are amazing. All right. So for Kronos, we are taking a look at pirate factions, which feels like a huge honor. These are some of the most amazing ships in EVE. Whether you're a frigate duelist or an incursioner or just need something really nice for your station hangar, this is often in your end game. When we started working on pirate factions, we wanted to do a lot of the things that you're probably used to us doing by now, looking at power level usage. We wanted to try and tie the themes together across all the factions so that you had a good idea of what to expect from each one. And we wanted to avoid overlap between factions if possible, because that did exist in some places. When we got to work on this, we started with Serpentis. This looked like the perfect pirate faction in a lot of ways to us. It's known for brutal hybrid damage and damage application, and it does something really special by breaking the rules and having the strongest webs in all of New Eden. And we didn't want to change that, leaving this in place. And not only that, but we wanted to take this sort of feeling from Serpentis of having something that really sets them apart, really makes them kind of outside the Empire factions in terms of what they're capable of, and extend it to the rest of the pirate factions. So if we look at Blood, we had a really powerful ship in the Balgorn, a couple others that we weren't seeing quite as good of use out of. And so we did a full rebalance on the lower 2, the Ashimu and the Cruor, to bring them up to speed with the rest of the cruisers and frigates they're competing with. We gave them the Balgord's bonus to web range. We kept the really strong newts, and we also gave all of the Blood Raider ships a brand new ability to NOS other ships regardless of their own cap, which is should be very interesting to see the way it plays out. This is basically NOS before we nerfed it. Guristas needed a power bump across the board, especially the Worm, the Rattlesnake a bit as well, and the Gila had fallen out of favor since the Ishtar got a lot stronger recently. So the first thing we did was gave all Guristas ships damage bonuses instead of range bonuses, so the overall damage is going up a lot. And they're still shield-taking monsters, of course. But we also are doing something special by giving them a new type of drone bonus. Starting in Kronos, every Guristas ship will get only 2 drones rather than the usual 5, and they'll get enormous bonuses to drone damage and HP. These will be the biggest sub-cap drones in the game. They will be very difficult to kill, and the effective drones that Guristas ships will field will exceed that of almost anything else in the game. Sanchez, you can clap, that's fine. Sanchez was one that was really open for some new flavor. It was a faction that had a battleship that got a lot of PvE use, which was good. We wanted to preserve that if possible. Had awesome laser weapons, usually shield tanked, but it lacked that rule-breaking feature to set it apart from everything else. So after this release, all Sanchez Nation ships will have a double speed bonus to all their afterburners, which means that you'll be seeing succubuses going around 5K a second in low sec with an afterburner that can't be scrammed. It also means you'll probably see a Phantasm sometime, which is new. And last but not least, Angels, which were a really interesting one because Angels have always been the most powerful and most popular pirate faction in many environments. All the way from the Macarial down to the Dramiel, throughout history, these have been really strong ships. And we actually came into the rebalance expecting to do some hefty nerfing. And when we got into it and started looking at them and talking with you guys, we not only found that we didn't need to nerf the extreme speed or the projectile mastery for the most part, but we had an opportunity to give them something as well. And so starting in Kronos, they're actually warping faster than any other ships of their class. So the Macarial will move between grids and systems about as fast as a cruiser, and that trickles on down to the other 3. So that's pretty fantastic. A battle cruiser, that's a little slight exaggeration. All right. So that's pirate factions, but we kind of felt something was missing. So for Kronos, we have Morty's Legion. We're really excited about this. Mordu was a Caldari Navy separatist who won over a lot of Ventaki Navy as well, built a group of kind of elite mercenaries and contractors. And so starting in Kronos, you'll see these guys deployed to low-sec space, where you may want to try and kill them because they might drop something you need to build their ships. And their ships, speaking of them, will be fast and versatile skirmishers. They'll be just shy of Angel, most likely, when it comes to speed and kiting ability. And they will be our first primary missile specialist pirate faction. These things are both really good, but they need to break the rules somehow. So from their Galente side, they're getting scram range. So watch out for some of the nastiest kiting ships around. And this isn't all I have for you. I can actually show you some ships. This is the Garmer. This is a frigate. This is the Orthrus cruiser. And this is the Barghest battleship. And I'm going to hand you back to Josh.
Those are some absolutely gorgeous new ships, but also, as our experienced players have come to expect, our amazing art team has also been going back and redoing the visuals of some of your favorite existing ships as well. And we're going to show you some of that now, too. My next slide is one of the most popular frigates and interceptors in the game. We're completely redoing the visuals of the Condor, Crow, and Raptor. I think a lot of people are going to be very excited to fly this. We're also going to be redoing one of the most requested remodels in the game, the Caldari Moa. And you'll see over there, those wings at the side, they got a warp mode. They curve right in when you're moving. As well, we're also doing a redesign of the Typhoon battleship. There you go. That is an amazing set of ships and visuals that we've got coming for you in the Kronos release. But there is still more. So I'm going to call back out CCP Scarpia to show you more of what's coming in Kronos. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a hard act to follow. Luckily, though, for me, I have some awesome stuff to show as well. I'm sorry. That's, yeah, I don't know. Well, I can't figure out. So we're going to go on. So they have faction ships. What's bigger than faction ships? Faction stations. So, they're not ships, but at least they're stations. Yeah. So, we are very excited to show you how we've themed the vast majority of stations by their faction. And went around and got an early clip. Did really wanted to show it. It's very last minute, but so please bear with us. But it just looks too awesome, so I'm gonna play it. Gonna walk through a few of them. Okay. Next thing, which is also awesome and super nerdy, is that the sound team has added some very powerful customization options. And this is especially useful for all the multitaskers out there, but it lets you customize which sounds to play, what the volume is, and even like having different settings for if they have desktop focus or not. So I think you're gonna love it. And I have a small video. It's not here, but I got it and I'll tweet it tonight or tomorrow. So 12 new ship skins in our ship skinning pilot program are coming out. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. And also, as so the groundwork or the first milestone in our new vision for the new player experience, that was a great talk earlier today. You should check it out on Twitch if you weren't there. Is we're launching tooltips in the game. This, yeah, may not seem like a big feature, but it makes a huge difference because it gives all the necessary contextual information that that you need, new players, old players, anyone really. And then we also have new sounds for stations based on the activity and the new industrial landscape Cameron told you about. And we have new booster sounds. And last thing, which I'm extremely excited about talking about, I saw a sample of this like back just after I came over, and like it was amazing. Anyway, sorry, it's emotional. We're getting really cool warp-in effects and warp-out effects that play in third person when somebody leaves or arrives on your grid. And this was even more last minute. We were just kind of putting together like an hour and a half ago, but I really, really want to show it to you and watch it myself. So let's play it. Again. All right. Let's do it again. Well, just Harpa can't handle it. It just breaks. Okay. So, I haven't really introduced myself. I've been the lead game designer for EVE for exactly 6 months yesterday. Came over here end of October and was involved in everything that's coming out in the summer. So, but this makes it my 10th year now at designing games at CCP. Prior to this role, I worked on the World of Darkness team for about 4.5 years, but originally I was hired to create the EVE Second Genesis collectible card game. That may be like 2. So I've been to every Fanfest except the last 2. And it's just, you've shown time and time again just how dedicated you are to EVE. And also just how invested you are in each other and in this universe we're building together and in us. And I've just always been very conscious of the fact that your investment is what's been directly enabling me at CCP. So now that I'm here, I feel it's my responsibility to deliver on that investment. Thank you very much. That's it for me. I would like to welcome CCP Seagull back. Andy, thank you.
So on June 3rd, in the Kronos release, this massive set of updates to EVE Online. I want to give a huge thank you to CCP Scarpia, CCP Nullarbor, CCP Fossey, and CCP Rise for showing off all of this stuff and representing the work of the entire EVE development team. Let's give them an applause. So that's our next big update to EVE Online. But we, of course, have some plans for the future. And we have built a roadmap that's going to take us there. But before I share some of that roadmap with you, I want to first give the stage to EVE's technical director, CCP Veritas, so that he can tell you about some of the deep foundations that we are working on to enable all of these future plans. Welcome to the stage, Brian.
Hey, Fanfest, how y'all doing? Good? All right, you ready to talk some math? Yeah! All right, let's do this. So I want to talk to you guys a bit today about what the EVE Online engine teams are working on as enabling technologies in order to make the EVE Online engine not only wicked fast, but also super capable. The first system I want to talk to you guys about today is called Dogma. Dogma is the core gameplay engine of EVE Online that deals with a lot of numbers and a lot of math. If it's fitting your ship, all the statistics behind that, all the skills, their effects, the damage you do, and the damage you take. All of this is calculated by Dogma and tracked. I want to walk you through a quick example of how it does its job, and then talk about the changes we've made to it and are going to be shipping later. The example I want to go through is the EM Shield Compensation skill book. This gives a bonus to passive EM hardeners for your shields, like the ones on this ship here. Now, if we take this and boil down just what this skill book affects, and then take that over to the left, and because I'm a programmer, I like to deal with things in boxes, I'm going to turn them into boxes. Now we're cooking. So we need a system here to take the skill level attribute, which is 5 because I've got really good skills, and convert that through some math into a bonus on your ship. And for that, we need some modifiers. The first one we need is within the skill book, a modifier to go from the skill level to a hardening bonus. So that takes an authored hardening bonus of like 5%, multiply it by the skill. Now it's 25%. Hooray, we get more stuff. We then need a modifier from that skill book to the module on your ship. Different kind of modifier, tracked separately, gets the business done. From there, we just need to round out the picture and take the modifier from the module onto the ship. So very simply, this one simple skill book looks like this. Draw some arrows, there, and then there to there, and we're good. You can imagine what this would look like for a full skill book, or a full brain with like 400 skills in it, and then a ship with a bunch of modules. Like I started putting that into PowerPoint, and it didn't like that very much. So let's talk about what we're doing about it, right? Because this is a pretty complex picture. So if we take the arrows away and start again from scratch, the first thing we did was we took all that nasty information on the right that gets the job done, but is a little weird, and just throw it away. Right? And if we stop here, nothing would work anymore, so we got to replace it with something, right? So we take all those attributes and we divorce them away from their items and let them live on their own. Now if we draw that same picture again, we only need a couple. And in fact, we don't even need the items at all. This gives us a much simpler system to deal with, where the attributes know how to work within themselves with all that external tracking, which allows us not only as humans to understand how it's coded better, but should also allow the computer to execute it better. And this is a very core foundational system. I'm very excited to be making this change. It's currently in the QA process, and we can't even jump between systems yet, but it's coming. All right. Another project that the engine teams have been working on is the Eve probe. Snorlax from Team R&B gave a presentation about this earlier. Eve Probe is a program that you download separate from the Eve Online client that runs through some sessions with our rendering engine, showing different scenes and different explosions and really cool looking stuff, with a very serious intention of seeing how the Eve rendering tech works on your PCs. This gives us a very good, clear indication on how that rendering tech is working. And if we have any instabilities, it gives us a very clean bench test to diagnose them on. It allows us to test fixes and ship those fixes in the Eve Probe application so that we have confidence when we patch the full client that it's going to work. In addition, as we add more rendering features, we'll be able to put them into the probe and know their impact on your video cards before we put them in the client. This is also something that we're very much looking forward to. Another technology we've done recently is to do with how we do scale testing on EVE Online. Back in the day, we used to rely entirely on mass tests, where we kindly invited many hundreds of you to come onto one of our test servers and shoot each other for fun. And that was all very good, and very thank you for showing up. But it's not very good when you're trying to do real performance work. You're trying to iterate on a problem. So a couple years ago, we came up with a tech called thin clients. And that's a special version of the EVE Online client with a low memory profile, no rendering, which allowed us to run maybe 400 or 500 with some specialized hardware. This is a picture of the no client architecture. With some clever hacks here and there, I was able to get 1,000 rifters shooting rockets at me just within my own workstation. This should revolutionize not only how we do server performance, but also how we do client performance, and be able to test these things at scale. It's very exciting stuff. At least it gets me going. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm digging it. So that was a look at a few of the projects that we've been working on. I'd like to hand the stage back to CCP Siegel.
Thank you, CCP Veritas. So EVE Online and the freedom you have in this game to go anywhere you want and bring 1,000 of your closest friends present some pretty unique technical challenges. And we have a number of engine teams working on this to make sure that we are really laying foundations for EVE to go on forever. Now, last year on this stage, I asked you to dream with me about building and destroying, about a universe where capsuleers were taking over more and more power from the empires. I asked you to dream about space-scale industrial operations. And I showed this concept picture here that has some aspects of that vision in action. And this year, I want to talk you through a few things in this picture to show you how we have a roadmap that's going to take us to making some of the ideas in this image reality. So, first thing, on the left here, you see a couple of ships, and they are customized. They have a corp logo on there, the couple of paint stripes, and the two ships, they are customized in a similar manner. And as you know, we started our ship painting pilot program this year, where you can get some special edition ships, but we want to take customization all the way to this kind of vision. And I have a little thing to show you, which is a sneak peek of some of the development work that we have done in the last year to get us there. So take a look at this. Pretty cool, huh? So since last year, we've been working on a number of technical underpinnings to make this idea reality. And we're now at the point where we can start the work of turning this into a real feature. And another thing you see in this picture is some kind of structures, right? Some new kind of structures that we haven't seen before. And you can maybe imagine them to be some kind of new manufacturing plant owned by a corporation or alliance. And we want the landscape of New Eden to have more stuff in it, more things that you can encounter, that you can destroy or disrupt or take over. And as you heard CCP Scarpia say, pretty much anything you can build should be possible to destroy. But to give you a new kind of space-scale industrial gameplay, and a gameplay that lets you, build and destroy stuff all over the place, we first needed to invest in the core industry features of EVE Online. So that was the first project that we took on. And as you saw before, a large chunk of that work is coming to you very soon in the Kronos release. And when we're done with that, we're going to take the same level of ambition and long-term goals and aim to tackle all of the big structures. Pauses, stations, star bases, everything, all of it. We're going to make it better, and we're going to look at the entire gameplay around these structures. Because when we're going to let you build a whole bunch of new things, we had to make sure first that building stuff in Eve was an enjoyable activity that we're happy to point people towards. Now, another thing that's needed to make a universe where people collaborate and compete around epic goals in different interesting ways is a well-made system for corporations and alliances. So that's the next big project that we are starting on now. And this will, of course, be a cleanup of the corporation role system and the user interface that has to do with managing all of these things. But we're also going to look at how you organize yourselves around different goals. How power is distributed in a group of people, how you manage and own assets, how you control a group of people doing things together, because this means that when we can do interesting things here and interesting things with structures that people can build, that people can destroy, that they can take over, then we're at a point where we think that we can really turn to sovereignty and warfare and reimagine it in a way we believe in. So when we then introduce new epic scale construction projects into the game, they will be something that can concern the whole universe. And I want to pause a little bit here and remind you that we're building a universe where all parts of the vicious cycle, harvesting, building, and destruction, are equally important and should provide interesting gameplay. You should have choice in how much risk you want to expose yourself and your operations to, and you should have choice in how much you want to play directly with others. Because none of these features that I'm talking about here are something that's intended for a small group of people in a small area of the game. They're all deep foundational systems that provide an arena for people to be part of this universe. So once we get to this piece, the idea of building stargates, of controlling space, this will be a journey that every capsuleer can be a part of. But what about these stargates then? If the capsuleers manage to construct some new technology with the potential of breaking out of the known universe, what is it that we want to give you there, beyond the gates? Well, we want to give you something new to explore. A new frontier, a new experience in EVE Online. A place you can choose to go where you and everyone else have to figure things out again. Where you can encounter new challenges and new types of game mechanics in EVE. But to be able to give you that, we are now starting a big and ambitious project to build what we need to deliver that. The tools, the new game engine capabilities, the new art, the new designs. And we will use these things to improve the EVE you already know well before anyone manages to construct a Stargate. But for the true expansion to EVE Online, the universe is going to have to come together and build their way to it. And this will be an epic journey for every capsuleer to be part of. This is the plan that we are working on. And on behalf of the entire EVE team, I want to tell you this. Together, we are creating the world's largest living work of science fiction. It's a game world that people write history books about. I want all of you to be part of this universe and see how far we can go. Thank you.
So, how much did you guys like that? So we have a a lot of Eve developers here in the audience, and of course everyone at CCP in some way touches EVE Online. So if everyone that works and touches EVE Online could stand up, and the team that was presenting could come on stage. And I would love if you could let them hear what you think of their plan and their work so far. Yeah. Stand up. And if we could all, oh, there they are, see them. Look up. And if we could all say 3 times as I raise my hand, EVE Online. So, EVE Online! EVE Online! EVE Online! Woo! Thank you. So I thought that was an amazing keynote. I've now watched 10, and there were some takeaways I had. There was a moment where I actually cried. I'm not going to tell you when, but I did. And there was some interesting to sort of observe the crowd reaction. Ultimately, I think I can summarize it down is that you like to collect together things, build beautiful ships, and then destroy them. Could you all say for me, destroy? Destroy! Again, destroy! Destroy! Okay. Serious business. Destroy. So, in the opening, I talked about we take our products very seriously, and I'm sure you noticed the absolute distinct absence of any lolcats in this presentation. And I also told you that while we take what we do very seriously, we tend to take ourselves not very seriously, and we tend to do sort of crazy things that kind of makes no sense. And we're about to enter that part of the program. So we're going to do some more of it tomorrow, but Eve and destroy are the upcoming themes. And we have some agents of chaos at TTP that have put together something that nobody really can explain. And if you need to explain something really well, we can rely on our CMO, David Reed, to do that. And I want to bring David on stage to start off the chaos.
Rock on. Thank you, Hilmar. Thank all of you who have made the pilgrimage here to Reykjavik. The thousands of you watching the stream on Twitch, the hundreds of thousands of you whose names are etched in the world's first monument to a computer game erected in the northernmost capital city of planet Earth that will live well beyond everyone who is alive today, on a monument that will not fall and will not corrode under anodized aluminum. But before we get more serious about that, as Hilmar said, it is time now to begin the second phase of Fanfest, where we're going to take ourselves a little less seriously. But in some ways, what I want you to know is this is actually a pretty damn serious event we're about to have here. We are blessed to have Gunnar Nelson, the Icelandic mixed martial arts Brazilian jiu-jitsu phenom, an undefeated wrestler in his professional career, here tonight to take on a series of 10 men, CCP developers, who have the guts to see how well they have trained in their career for the most challenging physical endeavor of their lives. And you're going to get to see it right here. Now, once that ends, hopefully in a good way. We then will head to the pub crawl. Give or take an hour after the festivities begin, because who can say exactly how this fight is going to go. The pub crawl will begin right outside in front of Harpa, much like it did last year. And as Hilmar alluded to, let's do some destruction, but let's not try to destroy Reykjavik, because that might hurt us for Fanfest next year. So now I need you all to help me out and clear the room, because we've got some setup to do for the eve of destruction, because this shit is about to get real.